So I'm here with my good friend Jamie with B&K, an attorney law firm out of Charlotte, North Carolina, and you've really been leading the way with e-closings and everything. So why don't you tell everybody kind of an introduction to your company, who you are, and how did you get connected into e-closings?
Absolutely. My name is Jamie Kosofsky. I'm one of the founding partners of Brady and Kosofsky. And we started out as a really small law firm in Charlotte. There was 5 of us, 2 attorneys, 3 staff members. And we started our practice on the day that the mortgage crisis collapsed. And Shearson, all the big banks shut down. And there we were, brand new office, Matthews, North Carolina. And I had worked in the default industry. And all of a sudden, I had all my default clients coming to me saying, we want you to cover the entire state. It was me and 1 paralegal at that point in time.
Covering North Carolina.
Covering the entire state of North Carolina.
Yeah.
And I remember looking at John, and John's like, you know that Skype thing that you like to use? Why don't you use that? And so we started using Skype. And it started out where I was doing consumer-facing short sale consultations about whether or not you were going to qualify for a short sale or not. And we would talk for a half hour, and I would run through some calculations. And based on that, we would figure out, do you need to call 1-800-995-HOPE now, or do we need to negotiate a short sale for you? Well, after a while, we started having people sign documents while we were online, and they would mail them back to me.
Mm-hmm.
Then DocuSign started coming into vogue, and we started using DocuSign, having people sign with DocuSign, send it back to me. I was speaking at a conference over in Greensboro, and I got approached by Ozzie Stallworth, and Ozzie asked me, he goes, what are you doing with your videos and closings and the stuff you're doing online? I've heard a lot about it. And, you know, when the director of notary enforcement says that to you, you kind of get that bad feeling in your stomach. And I was like, well, it depends on what you want to know. And he goes, I don't understand why you guys aren't closing with it. And I said to him, I said, you know, it's funny you say that, because what I started doing is sending notaries out on the road. I get on Skype, we go through the documents, and then the notary sends the package back to me. That was the first iteration of e-closings in North Carolina. That was probably back in about 2010, 2011, 2012. And we weren't doing e-notarization because I didn't understand how it worked. And I thought that you had to have a different seal for every lender. And Ozzie and I sat down, we had a really nice lunch. And by the end of the conversation, we had agreed to start working on getting e-closings going in North Carolina. And it was soon thereafter that Ozzie had called me and said that they're putting together a board over in Raleigh to discuss this and get it off the ground.
Is that the committee, the advisory committee?
It's the advisory committee. So Esther Fernandez and I jumped in the car, and we drove over to the Secretary of State's office. And I remember I was at the far corner of the table, and there's this gentleman that was quite a bit older than me at the other end of the table in a nice suit and tie. I mean, I don't like wearing suits, and I definitely don't like wearing ties. And I looked at Ash and I go, you see that old guy down there? He'll never do an e-closing. Why is he even here? Sure enough, that was Ken Sykes.
Ken, I was going to guess Ken.
That was Ken. Ken knocked it out of the park. And the first e-closing was done by my competitor, Matt Hunneville, here in Charlotte. And it was a refinance up in Hickory. And I remember calling that night, calling Kelly and Ken and saying, okay, I get the next one. And that one was a purchase. And the young lady had a special needs daughter. She was up in Mooresville, which is about 40 minutes. I was in Matthews at the time. It was before my office burned. And we did the closing with her in Mooresville. I was at the Rural Center with Ozzy in front of 200 people from all over the country, including the FHFA, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, all the banks, all the investors. We had this lady on the camera in Mooresville. We had my attorney on the camera in Matthews, and we closed that sucker in 35 minutes.
Yeah. Well, and I already explained early in our class today about my closing, and you were on that. You were the closing attorney for it. If you actually look in the picture in the class earlier today, you can kind of see you on the screen and everything. And yeah, we did a Ron closing, which is actually one of the first in North Carolina that we did. And can't quite do it yet because the rules and all have changed like that. But yeah, I was in King, North Carolina. My lender was in Winston-Salem. You were in Charlotte, I think.
I was in Matthews.
You in Matthews, and the notary was there with you. And really everything signed once it was completed and everything, what, 15, 20 minutes to record?
15, 20 minutes to record.
So what would you say from the attorney side of things? I mean, I see so many advantages for real estate brokers. We've talked about this before, and where I'm really interested in it from a real estate broker's perspective is we can kind of control that experience. You know, we could actually have closings in our office and everything now, instead of going to an attorney's office and driving, or we could do closings really anywhere. What's your take? What's your perspective as an attorney that's doing e-closings?
So you're right. I mean, it's crazy to think that the two most important parts of the real estate broker's relationship with their clients, only 50% is under your control. And that's when you first meet your client. You can have a great you can have a great marketing, you can have great negotiations, everything can go smooth. And then it goes to the attorney's office and we can totally bomb it. and I've bombed my fair share of them. But what the e-closing technology allows us to do is it allows us to create the experience. And it allows us to create the experience not only for us, you know, but for the client and for the real estate professional. You guys have worked months and months and months, put miles on your car in some cases. I don't know so much anymore, but
yeah, we still put miles on our car.
it comes down to going to this office and doing a closing. And the only thing that I'm worried about is getting you out so I can get the documents recorded and get my next closing on the table.
Mm-hmm.
With the e-closing, what happens is you don't see what goes on in the background. And what's going on in the background, you know, it's not that much fun to watch or to sit in the office and wait for the keys. You know, we're one of the only states in the country where when you go to the closing table, you don't walk away with a set of keys and the real estate professional doesn't walk away with a check.
Come back in a couple hours after it's
Come
recorded.
back in a couple hours, go, you know, Starbucks used to love me over in Matthews.
Mm-hmm.
And what the e-closing does is it digitizes the documents, first of all, which means you do not miss a signature, you do not miss an initial, you do not miss a checkbox. The technology simply will not let that happen. So you know there's no errors. That's number one. Number two, it's very easy to send everything over to the lender to get it approved. You don't have to scan it. There's no danger of pages sticking together or being upside down. Once it's done, it's done. And we've taken what is a 2.5 hour process and we can do it in a matter of 10 minutes.
So
Because
once everything is signed and sent back to you, send it to the attorney, I mean, the lender looks it over, everything's good, press a button, record it at the Register of Deeds. Are you saying that the keys could be cut and agents' commissions checked? Because there's agents in this class, they want to know when they're going to get their checks, right? So are you saying those funds could just be wired directly to the real estate company at that point?
absolutely, it's, you know, on the first closing that we did, the first purchase that we did, I mean, we were of record. I want to say it was 35 minutes after we started the explanation of the settlement statement. I remember looking at Kelly Arrington sitting in the crowd. She was on the phone with the closing department. She says, "You're clear." We had already sent someone to update the title. And what we've learned to do is we schedule our updates to coincide with the time. And so it's done. And we've taken this chaotic, confusing,
Intimidating. I would say intimidating for first-time buyers.
Yeah, it's just everything that can go wrong is just primed to go wrong. You're taking it out of the equation.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
the computers don't make mistakes.
And I know as a real estate broker, one of the most frustrating things that we run into, we get a house under contract, 30 days due diligence, 45 days to close. We work on it. We're one day before closing, no documents, no CDs or anything like that. We're 3 hours before closing, no documents, no CDs. Now, typically with the e-closing, the clients can get their documents, 3 or 4 days ahead of time to review on some of those?
Yeah, I think since 2017, we've done several thousand of these.
Mhm.
And in almost every case, the documents come really early because they've got to be ready for their electronic processing, and they tend to get pushed a little bit quicker. So instead of having people coming to the table that have never seen documents before, you've got them a day in advance, sometimes 3 days in advance.
Yeah. So on my closing that we did, I had all of my documents 3 days before closing. I couldn't sign anything till the actual day of. So
Right.
I could review, I could read everything. The day of closing, at I think it's maybe 1 a.m. or something, the day of closing. I could go on, say my closing was scheduled with you at 12 o'clock. I could go on at 10 o'clock and go ahead and sign everything that doesn't have to be notarized. So
Right.
when our time comes at 12 o'clock, we basically have 4 or 5 pages that have to be notarized, and
Right.
we're done. Is that typically what you're seeing with these?
Yeah, I mean, they come in all shapes and sizes. Sometimes you get a lender that just says, just do the whole thing electronically, get all the docs there, we'll do them all together. What we're seeing most of the time now is what we call a thin closing. And a thin closing is where we only get the documents that need to be notarized
Mhm.
and the note. Because that way, everything is signed before you get it. All of the loan applications and tax documents and, you know, all the name affidavits, everything like that, sign it on your own time, send it back online. You're not gonna be able to send it back unless it's right.
Yeah.
And it just cuts down the time at the table. It cuts down the time to get the documents approved and dispersed.
Awesome. So what's kind of your closing thoughts to tell realtors? Why should they even be interested in this? Could you see this really helping their business? We've talked about the experience kind of thing, because we could have clients come into our office. If our clients are busy, we can meet them at work, because basically they just need internet access, right?
So
Laptop and a video, I guess.
all you need is a laptop, internet, and that's it. You know, for right now, you know, we can send a notary anywhere in the state. I can jump on this on a camera and I can go over that document as if I'm sitting right there with the customer. In fact, I can sit there and I can mark up the screen and circle things and underline it and highlight it in a way that I can't do it at the closing table. And it just gets done quicker. As a young attorney, I made trips to the airport where I missed a signature, or I went to a train station to get an initial, and I went uptown to do that. That's the worst feeling in the world. It is so embarrassing to miss signatures. This way, there is no missed signatures. This way, it's smooth. Most importantly, though, you can make it what you want it. If you want it to be a boring old closing in an attorney's office with books and all kinds of garbage behind you, great.
And that's for some people.
Right.
And I've told people and a lot of things, e-closings are not for everybody.
Right.
I mean, if they want to come, if their email address ends in AOL.com, they might be a traditional closing person, and that's totally fine. But we're to the point now where people are buying cars on their cell phone, watching Netflix on their couch. This is becoming more and more across the board for pretty much everything, I think.
So one last thing, we haven't talked about this. The way this happened, this first one happened, I got a call from Ken Sykes and Ozzy, and I was on my way to Israel to see my daughter. And they're like, can you come to Raleigh today? And I'm like, well, I'm leaving for Israel in the morning. They're like, we need you in Raleigh. I'm like, okay. So I get in the car, go over there, and Ken's like, we need some sizzle in this. So that's when we decided to do it live. On my way to Israel, I logged on to the internet on the airplane. We did 3 test closings over the Greek islands at 36,000 feet.
That's crazy.
You can literally do this anywhere. Would that have been legal to do? Probably not, because there's all kinds of international things going on. But this type of technology is going to help a lot of people in a lot of ways. If you're from the Fort Bragg area, if you're down by the naval base, you've got people overseas all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the main rules, if you're new to real estate, a main rule, if you want to get busy in real estate, plan a vacation. So this could help with that, right? So if you're on vacation, you could possibly still get deals closed and everything. So, hey, I really appreciate it. You said you do closings across North Carolina. So if somebody's watching this and they want to do e-closings and there's not attorneys in their area that are doing any of them, can they reach out to you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You can check us out at bandklaw.com or give us a call at 704-849-8008.
All right. Thanks for taking the time to talk with me.
Thanks, Mark.